If we want to be as influential with people as we can, then our level of excellence matters. I'm Neil Zimmerman. I am the production engineering director at Christ Fellowship Church. We are a large multi-site church in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. We have locations all across South Florida. We're really looking to create an environment that engages people and that is distraction-free and really pulls them in and makes them a part of the worship experience. We want people walking into our spaces to feel the intentionality and the level of excellence, but we also want our experiences to feel familiar and culturally relevant to what's going on around them every day. We take a lot of our inspiration, here in South Florida. Things are very bright, very colorful. Nature is everywhere all year long. We've put thought into the color temperature of the house lights. We've put a lot of thought into the color temperature of front light, so that it feels natural and engaging for people that are in the room, but also translates well to broadcast. When we approach design, because our buildings are not all the same, we really have to consider, okay, what are the natural tendencies of this room? How is this room going to make me feel if I do nothing? And then what am I trying to make the room feel like? And what tactics can I use to get there? Towards the front of our stage, we've got our communicators, our worship leaders, our people that we really want, both people watching through a camera lens and people in room to engage with. At our main location, we have 7 vocals across the front of the stage, and everybody was single point lit. And we always really liked the way the center vocalist looked. And the reason for that is we have a drywall ceiling and it's split in center. You cannot get a single key on center in our room, or at least you couldn't at the time. And we always loved the way the person on center looks. And finally we went, well, what if we lit all the positions with 2 fixtures? For so long, we had seen it as like we can't get a single point on that person, and it's such a bummer because it's always the 2 fixtures. But what we realized is it always looked better on camera, and it always looked more engaging in the room than all the other positions. And so we really wanted to get something that felt as natural as humanly possible. And that's what we found, was having those 2 different points from a front light standpoint for our worship vocalists really made them feel supernatural and made it really easy to engage with what they were doing from an audience and a camera perspective. I think creating separation between elements on stage is important. We have a relatively deep stage, and so creating separation between our communicator in the background is something that we have to work at. Particularly with a giant LED wall right behind him. We have a pretty direct backlight that are at a fairly aggressive angle to where our communicator stands. And the goal there was just to get a nice clean line over the communicator's shoulder that gives you the visual representation that he's separate from the background. Taking a step back, in sort of the mid-stage area, you've got our band. And we typically light them differently than we do our communicator, our worship leader. They're important to the experience, but they're a piece of the experience versus a leader of the experience. If we want to highlight a particular instrument, or if there's a turnaround in a song and the band is doing something really fun, we can still do that, but rather than highlighting them with lighting, we're going to put a handheld camera on them, because we're also working in an iMac environment, so we can leverage a video to pull focus just as well as we can with lighting. By lighting the band in a color, we end up with really cool video shots of the band that we can use to pull focus in and out during moments where it's relevant, but it doesn't overall pull your focus on stage. Vertical lines do wonders in making things feel taller. If I have a shorter ceiling, we'll orient fixtures, so that they go up and down versus left and right. Oftentimes we'll use a stair-step approach to try to make the center of the stage feel bigger and more significant, and the edges of the stage feel slightly less so. We've done things over our stages where, we've built ceilings of lights that are at an angle. Depending on the event and depending on what we're trying to do, there are times where you really want people to walk in and go, oh my gosh, like, look, it's big and incredible. But there are other times where you really want people looking down and being focused on what's going on. And so building a rig that can do both of those things well, I think, is key. Oftentimes people go, well, I've got to buy the biggest one of whatever that is, and that way I'm covered for whatever it is I'm ever going to have to do. And a lot of times you end up spending way more money than you really need to on a piece of gear that is probably over-resourced for what you're really trying to do. Creating excellence with what you have and a small amount of resourcing teaches you how to make good decisions when you do have the resourcing. Knowing what you can do with this much helps inform your decision making when you have this much or this much. I think that was something we learned is, okay, if I know exactly how much potential is here, then when I'm working with a budget that's bigger, I know how to get that much more potential out of this much. Oftentimes, one of the trade-offs with creating excellence with this much is it comes at the cost of sustainability. So when you increase your budget you have available to you, when you've worked with this much, the first question is, great, how do I make the excellence that we're currently creating sustainable for the organization moving forward?